is how legends are made.
So this is a Minnow-Fish carb. A little bit of background about me. I have been racing in the UK Formula V series with that car on and off for 20 something years. And with regard to the fish carbs, so this is a Minnow-Fish carb. A little bit of background to Minnow-Fish and the man behind it. The Minnow-Fish is an adapted fish carb from the States, or in this case from Canada. When Bob was in Canada, I think he was chief engineer at Short Aviation. He met a man who was involved in the fish carbs and he liked them, and he bought basically the European rights, and he returned to the UK and set up shop in Hackbridge. Somehow, and history does not relate, he met my mum and dad, and my mum and dad ended up racing minis powered by Minnow-Fish carbs for Bob in the late 60s and early 70s. In 1970 or thereabouts, I believe, Bob, for whatever reason, mostly because he likes Scotland, I think, up sticks and moved lock, stock and barrel to a little place called Lochgilphead on the west coast of Scotland. I am in the garage. Quite a significant garage, really. 575 miles and 36 years from my garage. This is where it sort of all began for me. My first job after leaving school. Minnow-Fish carburetors on the west coast of Scotland. I'll give you a quick guided tour from what I can remember. So in here is, it's a bit dark and I've no idea where the light switch is. Machine shop, various mills and lathes and all that sort of thing. Up those stairs is where the Minnow-Fish carbs are put together. Cam grinder and all that sort of thing. Out into the yard we have, that was my bedroom window for a while. And then here we have more things from my history. The Argyle Turbo GT. That particular car I did help put together, and it was shown at the Scottish Motor Show in 83 or 84, where I wore a kilt. Woo! Here we have an old chassis from the Argyle, and here is, that's a Minnow-Fish carburetor, of which I do have some, and the plan is one day to actually get them on the V, because they're supposed to work quite well on the Volkswagen engines. That and minis were the favourite things. And in here we have the old rolling road there. Bob's still plodding along here, but yeah, it's very surreal after 36 years. That's where I sort of learnt about the carbs and some other stuff before going off and doing something else, basically. At that time, Bob was also producing a Scottish supercar called the Argyle Turbo GT. I arrived just as the car was about to be launched, and was at the launch at Inverary Castle, and also when we showed the car at the Scottish Motor Show at Kelvin Hall in Glasgow, I think. The car itself is unique, I'll say. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I love it. There were not very many produced, but I love it mostly because the fact it was 5 guys in some outbuildings in Lochgilphead on the west coast producing basically a supercar. It was very quick, it handled very well, and it certainly got you noticed if you were lucky enough to have one. Anyway, back to the Minnow-Fish carb, and this is it. It is, on the outside, I suppose it looks pretty much like most carbs. Your throttle arm, float chamber, fuel in, that's where it bolts, and your butterfly. In there you'll notice the first difference to a conventional carb, or the Weber anyway, which I'm comparing this to, with these 3 holes in the spindle. Now that spindle is hollow, and those 3 holes at the top are replicated by 3 holes at the bottom that are slightly smaller, and they play a part later on. The other things on the outside, this is for checking the fuel level in your float. Those 5 screws hold the float chamber on. That's air bleed for slow running, tick over adjustment, and just here there's a little grub screw, which again will be apparent later, and this balances the pressure between the inlet choke on the carb and the float chamber, I believe. These carbs can also be used for forced induction, and Bob was an early turbocharging guru and supercharging, wrote a few books, and the Minnow-Fish carbs work very well when they're blown through. The other thing that they are not affected by is atmospheric differences, apparently. So once you set your mixture, if you go above sea level by any particular distance, you shouldn't need to reset it. I've no idea how it works, but that's apparently what it does. So let's look inside one. Here's one I prepared earlier. So the float chamber held on, like I say, by these 5 screws. You take it off, like that, and let's just put that there for a minute. And there you have the float chamber. Pretty much the same as a conventional float chamber. Needle valve and float. Although it's a beautiful piece of brass. None of your plastic here. Whether that makes it better or worse, I don't know. But I certainly like it. So that's basically the same as any other carb. And then we have the rest of it. So this aluminium plate divides off the float chamber from this area, and this is where the magic happens. The accelerator pump is taken care of with this little reed valve. Again, beautiful bit of brass. And what happens when you stamp your foot on the throttle and the arm comes round, it compresses the fuel in this section, close the little reed valve, and then the fuel is forced up the capillary and out through the holes in the throttle spindle. So we talked about these holes in the throttle spindle. Now there are 3 holes in this carb because it's 1.25 inches. The 1.5 inches has 5 holes. And the hollow throttle spindle is connected to the throttle pickup arm, which also has a hole running all the way down through there, a capillary down to here. And this picks up fuel from this part of the float chamber. Now, the way it meters the fuel is by using this graduated groove, and as it goes through, it gets wider and deeper. And that lines up with the hole in the pickup arm, and as it goes through, it makes the jet bigger, and it allows more fuel to travel up the arm in relation to the movement of the butterfly. So from what I remember, setting up the carb, the first thing you do is set the mixture at idle. And the way you do that is you, with the engine running, you block one of these holes in the spindle. The engine note will then change, and I think from memory the ideal setting is that it drops very slightly for a second and then goes back to what it was at tick over. If it doesn't, that's adjusted by loosening that Allen grub screw there and tapping the butterfly in relation to those holes. I don't even remember if I ever did that, but I've not done it yet, so I'm not sure how easy or hard it is. But that's how you set up tick over mixture, and then I believe you adjust it with this air bleed screw. The mixture through the rest of the throttle travel is adjusted at full throttle. So at the top of this arm here, there's another Allen headed screw going in there, and the way it's adjusted is at full throttle, so all the way over like that. You take out the grub screw that was here, and then I don't know if you can see, so let's see if we can zoom in. Oh, I'm getting technical now, zooming in. Just in there, you can see an Allen head. And basically, you adjust the full throttle mixture by popping that in there and then turning it either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Anti-clockwise will richen it up, clockwise will lean it off. Best done on a rolling road, basically. I think the original instructions tell you to drive it up and down the road and tweak it a little bit until you get it right. So once your mixture is adjusted at full throttle, the metered groove should then automatically adjust your mixture to the correct ratio all the way through the throttle range. Now, we talked about these holes in the top, and you've got bigger holes at the top and smaller holes at the bottom. Now, I don't know the science, but the disparity in those holes is supposed to vaporize the fuel very well. They had good results when racing and on the rolling road, and the motoring press sort of wrote about it in the 60s and 70s. And like I say, I've had these carbs for nearly 20 years. Bob set them up for me, serviced them and set them up. And I don't even know how long ago it is, but it's a long time ago. Unfortunately, both my parents and Bob are no longer with us, so I can't ask Bob now because I've left it too long. Luckily, I had dinner with Bob up in Loch Ilphead probably 2 years ago now, and I did have a long chat about the carbs, and hopefully I can remember all the tips he gave me, because I'd really like to get them working on the V. Anyway, that's the preliminaries about the Minnow-Fish carbs. If anybody's got any questions or comments, please stick them down below. I'll answer everything that I can, and if I can't answer it, I'll tell you. And if you've got any info on setting up these carbs, there must be people out there that have done it. So if you've got any info, that would be great. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to try and put them on the car, and I'll keep you posted. Bye.